Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something, well, pretty fundamental aging, and how we can maybe, possibly, live a little bit longer.
It's something that, everyone's interested in, I think. It's a really hot topic right now in science and just in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got sent some really interesting material, a text called Yona Lewin, with some really thought-provoking ideas about aging.
It gets into some pretty detailed stuff, the cellular level, like what's happening in our bodies as we age.
Exactly. And even goes beyond that, like potential treatments for aging and how the beauty industry is, like, getting in on the action.
Right. It's wild.
So I guess our mission for this deep dive is to take you through all of that.
To unpack it, make sense of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start with something that really jumped out at me from the text. It asked, why do different animals live for such drastically different lengths of time?
Yeah, it's a big question. Like, why does a mouse only live for a couple of years, but a tortoise can live for, over a century?
Right. And it sounds like the answer might be in our genes, but also in the environment.
Definitely a combo of both. And actually, on that note, the text makes this pretty bold prediction. It says that by 2040, humans could be living past 120.
Wow. 120. That's pretty impressive.
Right. And get this, they link it to something called a very high activity rate of pteromoniasis in children.
Pteromoniasis. I've definitely never heard of that.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll have to get into that.
Yeah, it sounds pretty sci-fi, right? But, we're just presenting what's in the text here.
Exactly. Now, here's something else that's interesting. We usually just think of aging as, a natural part of life, right?
Right.
But then the text points out that back in 2018, the World Health Organization, the WHO, actually classified aging, or mature age as they call it, as a disease.
A disease? That's kind of a crazy thought.
I know, right? But if it is a disease, maybe we can actually treat it.
That's the big implication. Maybe we don't just have to accept aging as inevitable.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it all. What's actually going on inside our bodies as we age?
Well, it all starts with our cells, right?
Right.
The text actually says we start as a single cell that keeps dividing until we end up with 30 cells.
30 cells? That doesn't seem like a lot for a whole human.
No, it does seem a little low.
Yeah.
But that's what the text says.
Okay, well, regardless of the exact number, what's important is that each cell has our genes.
Right. Our genes, they're like the instruction manual for our entire body.
They tell our cells how to grow, how to function, and when to divide. And every time a cell divides, it has to make a copy of its DNA.
And just like if you kept photocopying a document over and over, you'd start to get little errors.
Exactly. The text describes it as the handwriting getting weird after many, many copies.
Right. So these errors in our DNA can lead to cells that don't work properly anymore.
The text calls them weird, or aging cells.
Or even zombie cells.
Zombie cells. I like that. And of course, these errors can sometimes lead to cancer cells.
Right, which are basically cells that have gone rogue and just keep dividing uncontrollably.
Now, the text mentions something called the Hayflick limit.
Oh, yes. The Hayflick limit. That's essentially a natural limit on how many times a cell can divide.
And for human cells, it's around 60 divisions, right?
Around there, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, our cells can't just keep dividing forever.
Okay. So why is there a limit?
Well, it has to do with how our DNA is copied. The process kind of works in one direction.
Okay.
And because of that, the very ends of our chromosomes don't get fully copied each time.
So we lose a bit of DNA with each copy.
Not exactly. We have these things called telomeres at the ends of our chromosomes.
Telomeres.
They're like protective caps. The text compares them to the cover of a book.
Okay.
The cover can get damaged, but the story inside is still protected.
So the telomeres are kind of like meaningless stretches of DNA that get shorter with each division to protect the important stuff.
Exactly. The text even calls them smoke lines, like they're not really part of the main message.
I like that. Smoke lines. So as our cells divide, these telomeres get shorter and shorter.
And eventually they get so short that the cell stops dividing properly.
Becomes a zombie cell.
Right. It's still hanging around, but it's not functioning the way it should. And it can actually start to cause problems for the cells around it.
Oh, wow. So it's like a domino effect of dysfunction?
Kind of, yeah. It's a big part of why we age.
Okay, so this is where things get a little counterintuitive. We often hear that a faster heart rate means a shorter lifespan.
Yeah, that's a common idea.
But the text says that might not be entirely true.
Not always, no. There are some interesting exceptions out there in the animal kingdom.
Right, and then it brings up this thing called the Phytos paradox.
Yes, the Phytos paradox.
Yes, this is a really fascinating concept. It says that larger animals with way more cells than smaller animals might actually have a lower risk of cancer.
Wait, really? You'd think more cells would mean more chances for something to go wrong.
You would, right. But that's the paradox.
So how does that work? Well, the text gives a couple of possible explanations. One is that larger animals might have more genes that could become cancerous.
Okay.
But because they're so much bigger, the proportion of cancerous cells is still relatively small.
Okay, so it's about the overall ratio.
Exactly. And here's another interesting idea. The text suggests that cancer cells can actually get cancer themselves.
Oh, cancer getting cancer.
Right. It's like a built-in self-destruct mechanism.
That's wild.
And there's some research to back this up. The text mentions a study from 2022 in Nature magazine that looked at 16 different species of whales.
Okay.
And they found that the bigger and longer lived the whale, the fewer instances of what they called sudden changes they observed.
Sudden changes. What does that mean?
Well, in the context of cancer research, it likely refers to the development of cancer cells.
Oh, I see. So basically, the bigger the whale, the less likely it was to develop cancer.
That's the gist, yeah.
Interesting. So how does all of this tie into evolution?
Right, well, the text makes a really important point about evolution. It says that evolution is all about adaptation.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about improvement. It's about survival and reproduction.
So whatever works, works.
Basically, yeah. And the text gives the example of the naked mole rat.
The naked mole rat, what's that?
They're these mouse-like creatures, but they live a really long time for their size, like up to 30 years.
30 years for a little rodent? That's incredible.
Right, and it makes them really interesting for scientists studying aging.
Okay, so we talked about telomeres getting shorter as a major factor in aging. But the text also mentions something called telomerase.
Yes, telomerase. This is an enzyme that can actually lengthen telomeres.
Wait, seriously? So it can, like, reverse the shortening?
In a way, yes. It adds those smoke lines back on.
Wow. So does that mean we could just use telomerase to stop aging altogether?
Well, not so fast. The text explains that cells with high telomerase activity can basically divide forever. And that's actually a hallmark of cancer cells. That's part of what makes them so dangerous.
Oh, right. So too much telomerase could be a bad thing.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
The text mentions sea crabs having high telomerase activity.
Yes. And theoretically, their cells could keep dividing indefinitely.
So could they live forever?
Well, in reality, no. They still die from other things like predation and disease.
Right. Makes sense. Now, with all this talk about space travel these days, like Elon Musk going to Mars, I'm curious about aging in space.
It's a really interesting question. A lot of people think that you would age faster in space because of all the radiation and the confined environment.
Yeah, that's what I would thought too.
But the text brings up the example of astronaut Scott Kelly.
Oh, yeah, the twin astronaut.
Exactly. He spent almost a year in space, and while there was a joke about him being technically younger because of relativity...
Relativity, that's a whole other can of worms.
It is, yeah. But what's really interesting is that they studied his telomeres, and they found that in certain white blood cells, his telomeres actually got longer while he was in space.
Wait, longer?
Yeah. And then they shrunk back to normal length when he returned to Earth.
So space travel could actually have some anti-aging effects.
It's possible, yeah. But obviously, more research is needed.
Okay, so given everything we've talked about, what kind of anti-aging research is being done right now?
Well, the text mentions a few main areas. One is manipulating telomerase.
Okay.
Scientists used to be really excited about the idea of boosting telomerase to slow down aging.
But we just talked about how that could be risky.
Right, exactly. So now they're focusing on suppressing telomerase in cancer cells.
So basically starving the cancer cells.
Exactly.
Interesting. What else are they looking at?
Well, there are these things called senolytics. They're drugs that can get rid of those zombie cells we talked about.
Oh, the ones that are just kind of hanging around causing trouble.
Right. And the text says that in mice, senolytics have been shown to increase lifespan by up to 36%.
36%. That's huge. Are there any senolytics available for humans?
Well, there are some promising compounds being studied, including some antioxidants that are found naturally in foods like fruits and vegetables. Quercetin is one example.
Okay, so maybe we should all be eating more quercetin.
It can't hurt.
What else is on the horizon for anti-aging research?
The text also talks about suicide command proteins.
Suicide command proteins, that sounds intense.
It is. These are proteins that can basically tell aging cells to self-destruct.
Wow.
And early research shows they could be up to 80% effective in small animals.
80%, that's remarkable.
Right. And then there's stem cell research.
Ah, yes. Stem cells. That's a whole other world.
It is, and the text acknowledges that there's been some controversy around stem cell research in the past,
Right.
but it's still a really active area of research.
I see. So what's the latest with stem cells?
Well, one exciting development is something called post-destructive stem cells. They're also called pre-induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPS cells.
iPS.
Yeah. These were developed by Professor Yamanaka Shina, who actually won a Nobel Prize for this work.
Wow. A Nobel Prize. That's
That-
got to be pretty significant.
It is. It's a really big deal in the field.
So what are iPS cells?
They're basically a way to reprogram adult cells back into a stem cell-like state.
Oh, wow. So you can take an adult cell like a skin cell and turn it back into a stem cell.
Exactly. And the text even suggests that we could see stem cell-based therapies available commercially within the next 20 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So all of this is super exciting, but what can we do right now to slow down aging?
Well, the text emphasizes the importance of prevention.
Prevention, that makes sense.
Yeah, so things like cancer gene testing, like the BRCA gene test that Angelina Jolie had,
Right.
and getting vaccinated against cancer-causing viruses like HPV.
HPV, that's one that can lead to cervical cancer, right?
Exactly. And also treating infections that can increase your cancer risk, like Helicobacter pylori.
Which is linked to stomach cancer.
Right. And then there are lifestyle factors, like wearing sunscreen to protect your skin from sun damage.
Sunscreen, always a good idea.
Absolutely. And avoiding things like smoking and excessive drinking.
Okay, so all the usual suspects.
Yeah, pretty much. And the text also talks about being mindful of extreme exercise.
Extreme exercise.
Yeah, because it can put a lot of stress on your cells.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's about finding a good balance.
Exactly.
What about diet? Does that play a role in aging?
Absolutely. The text highlights the importance of eating a diet rich in antioxidants.
Antioxidants, those are the things that fight free radicals, right?
Exactly. And they can help protect our telomeres from damage.
So what foods are good sources of antioxidants?
Well, the text mentions things like green tea, carrots, spinach, garlic, blueberries, broccoli, almonds, tomatoes, salmon, and omega-3 fatty acids.
Wow, that's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, there are plenty of options.
The text also briefly mentions those young blood experiments.
Oh, yes,
Right.
where they connect the circulatory systems of old and young animals.
Yeah, I've heard about those. But it sounds like the results in humans haven't been very conclusive.
Right. It mentions Brian Johnson's experience, but it doesn't sound like there's a definitive answer yet.
Okay, so no fountain of youth in young blood just yet.
Not that we know of.
The text also reminds us that we can't just stop cell division altogether.
Right. Our bodies need cell division for growth, repair, and healing.
So it's really about minimizing unnecessary damage and supporting healthy cell function.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. The text talks about how all this knowledge about aging is now being used in other industries, like the beauty industry.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. They're not just focusing on surface-level treatments anymore.
Right. It's not just about covering up wrinkles.
Exactly. They're looking at ways to actually regenerate cells and tissues.
Wow.
The text mentions things like stimulating collagen production.
Collagen. That's the stuff that keeps our skin looking young and plump.
Right. Right. And they're doing this with all sorts of methods, like topical treatments, drugs, and even substances derived from stem cells.
Stem cells again.
Yeah, it's popping up everywhere. They're also using stem cells to protect skin and blood vessels.
That's incredible.
And even injecting them directly into the skin.
So the future of beauty is cellular.
It seems so. They're really going beyond just lifting sagging skin. They're trying to address the underlying causes of aging.
Wow. That's pretty revolutionary.
It is. And it just goes to show how important it is to understand the science behind aging.
Absolutely, because then we can make more informed decisions about our health and well-being.
Exactly.
So to sum up, this deep dive into the text has been really eye-opening. Aging is this incredibly complex process that involves our genes, our cells, and our environment.
And while there's still a lot we don't know, there are already things we can do to slow down the aging process and live healthier, longer lives.
Right. And the fact that the WHO has classified aging as a disease suggests that we might be able to treat it in the future.
That's a really exciting prospect.
It is. It makes you wonder about the future of humanity. Like, what happens if we can significantly extend our lifespans? What are the implications for society, for the planet, for everything?
Those are big questions. And they're only going to become more relevant as our understanding of aging progresses.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's definitely given us a lot to think about.
You're welcome. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has. And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll be doing another deep dive, talking about all the incredible breakthroughs that have been made in anti-aging research.
I wouldn't be surprised. The field is moving so quickly.
Until then, take care of yourselves and stay curious.
Always stay curious.